Who does this?
Who does this? Indeed. And we're taking a break from filming. We are in the middle of filming a brand new course, a brand new production training course with this man here. And it's very exciting. And it is certainly something that anyone who wants to know the way this man makes club bangers is going to really enjoy. But because we've got a bit of time out, I thought, as our focus at the moment on digital DJ tips, we're doing a lot of talk about setting up your own home studio and getting sounds at home and getting ready to move from DJing into production. Who better to ask about how to do this than someone who did the same thing a decade or so ago and is now, well, you're currently number 1 and number 3.
You sound so old. A decade.
Well, you're in your 30s, aren't you? Shall I whisper that?
Are we starting the film?
When did you get really serious about production, Jay?
It's probably not a decade ago.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe 8 years.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
So you're currently number 1 and number 3 in the Beatport chart?
Actually, number 2 and number 3. Unfortunately, I've dropped off.
You've taken someone's taken the one spot off you. But I think most people watching this, who've got any aspirations to produce, would quite like to be number 2 and number 3 in the Beatport chart. So there's a lot of stuff to share as to how this is done. And of course, we're making this course, which is going to be great. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today's a really simple thing we want to talk about, which is how to make your studio sound better. You're setting up at home. Maybe you're setting up in your living room. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a space under the stairs or even your own room. But whatever it is, it's going to have to sound nice. And so specifically, we want to talk to you about how to make your studio sound nice.
How to make your home studio sound good.
So we're not in your home studio. Tell people where we are.
Oh, we're in my out-of-home studio, which is where we're filming this top secret new course. But I also have a home studio, which I'm in the middle of setting up at the moment. So Phil asked me about home studios, and I was like, I know a thing or two about home studios.
So specifically, when we're talking about making your home studio sound nice, your first point that you really wanted to get across to people is it's really important to have a space that absorbs sound.
Yeah, so I'll start off by talking about my home studio. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I've got like a spare bedroom in my apartment, and I put the studio in there. But basically, I just put a desk, a chair, and some speakers in an empty room, and the sound is like going bouncing around the room. And one thing I noticed when I started putting things in the room, the sound got so much better. And I'm not talking about expensive soundproofing or anything like that. I got like a big case of shelves to cover up one wall, put books on it, put these like little drawers from IKEA, just filled it with rubbish. And basically there's a few principles of acoustic treatment, absorption and diffusion. So you need to get some heavy things in there that are going to absorb the sound. Like if you imagine you had like a sofa, that's going to be really good at absorbing sound because it's like a really big like cushion.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, there's a
production team sat over there on a sofa. Yeah.
But then also you want to make sure that you diffuse the sound. And what that means is you want to make sure that you don't have like a big bare wall that the speakers are pointed at, because the sound will just bounce straight back and your ear will be really confused as to what's going on. So what you need to do is you need to make the reflections go in many different ways. And if you look at these panels behind, they've got like diffusion on the front. So the sound would hit the panel, and instead of bouncing straight back, it gets bounced back in all different ways because it's being thrown by the wooden surface on there.
Yeah, so that was your second point, really. Diffuse the sound. Don't just absorb the sound. Try and bounce it back in interesting ways and stuff. And that, just some people fall into the trap of thinking, I know there's not meant to be echoes, and just nailing continental quilts to every wall and putting thick carpet on the ceiling and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of time you'll see people, they put foam on every single wall inside the studio, and to be honest, it's not like, the more I've read up about studios, that's not like actually the best thing to do. You don't want to create an unnatural sounding space. You want to create a space where there are reflections, but they're very diffused. They're not very flat. They don't come straight back to you. And you also, so you want to make sure that the room has lots of things in it that absorb sound. That could be like big curtains, a bed. Just throw stuff in there and you'll notice the sound changes.
And this isn't only because you might want to record stuff in the room. In fact, it's not principally because of that. It's more because your room needs to sound good enough so you're hearing something that's half decent when you're listening to your speakers.
You're trying to create a good listening environment so that you can trust what you're hearing.
So apart from the fact that you do need speakers that sound quite nice, you know, you don't want to be using really cheap speakers. We'll get onto that though. Speaker positioning is the next thing that you wanted to talk about, where your speakers actually are. So
I don't know everything about this. I'm not an acoustician, but I know.
Is that a thing? It's a great word.
Acoustician.
Like
but I know that if you put your speakers in the corners, the bass is multiplied literally ×2. Okay, so that might sound really cool. And it
double bass.
And it actually is really cool if you don't want the room to sound nice. Like if you just want to turn up the bass, honestly, do it as an experiment. Take the speaker, take it from the middle of the room, put it in the corner, and the bass will actually double. But if you're trying to set up a studio, that's the last thing you want. So you need to find a way of not putting your speakers in the corner if possible. If you have to put them in the corner, a lot of speakers don't have a little adjust thing on the back where you can turn down the bass, and that's recommended because it really is a fact that the bass is doubled when you put them in the corner. Crazy, but true.
So Dan says, I'll chuck my nan in there. She's big.
Your nan's big.
Yeah,
Should be a good absorption.
Mark says, don't forget the lava lamp. Every studio should have a lava lamp.
Of course, Mark.
So thank you for that. So we're talking with James Hype because we're here in his big studio, his grown-up studio, making a production course, which is forthcoming on Digital DJ Tips. He's a club banger guy, so don't expect us to be teaching you how to make ambient, techno, and minimal liquid drum and bass. This is going to be James-style music, but that's for another day. We are talking about how to make your studio sound nicer. We're sat in your big studio now. It sounds wonderful, but you're building a studio at home as well as we speak. So you've got first-hand knowledge of grappling with the kind of things our audience will be grappling with when they're setting up their studios. You've already said it's important to absorb sound, but also to refract it in interesting ways, diffuse it around. And we just talked about keeping your speakers in a position where they're not rammed against a wall or even worse in the corner. So you get a more true sound. But let's talk a little bit more about speakers, because it's important to not just have the best speakers you can afford, but also to have variety, right?
Well, I know, obviously, I was a really new producer starting out at one point, and I know I just couldn't wait to buy some more expensive speakers. I had these like cheap speakers that I think my first speakers, I think I bought them for like less than £100. They were pretty cheap, and I couldn't wait to buy the bigger, more expensive speakers. And eventually, I remember I spent some more money, got some better speakers, but I still had this audio interface that it was like less than £100. And it just wasn't a very professional brand. And I had it for a long, long time. I didn't think anything of it. And then one day I had some more money and my production was going really well. And I was like, I think it's time to upgrade my audio interface. And I bought an audio interface that was like 8 times the price of the one that I had from one of the top brands. I'll say what brand it was. It's a UAD interface. Obviously, there's other really good brands as well.
Right behind us as we speak.
Yeah. I don't know if you can actually see.
Probably not, no. Maybe you can, yeah.
There it is. The one with the big knob. Yeah.
Boom.
And honestly, when I bought the good audio interface, you would not believe the difference in sound. It was like someone took the covers off the speakers, and I honestly felt like phenomenal. I had like the same pair of speakers, but I had the professional audio interface, and the difference was just mind blowing.
So if you haven't got £900,
obviously that's a lot of money.
What would I hear Focusrite make some nice audio interfaces?
Yeah, like my cousin's just getting into music production, and he's I might get this wrong. I think he's like 16 or 17, and he didn't have a big budget, and he was like, "What should I get?" And I was like, "Yeah, I reckon you should get the Focusrite, because I think you can get one for just under £100."
That's right. It's the Scarlett, the 2i2, the little Scarlett interface,
and it'll run on the USB-C, so straight out the MacBook if you have one of them, and it's a quality sounding interface for sure. And just before you buy your interface, do a bit of research, and there are some like cheaper brands which I think should be avoided, just because the sound quality is everything. It's like you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if all of that sound is going in and out of that interface.
And the reason we're talking about this is that when you're producing music, you need to hear the music as true as possible to how it really is, right? Because if you're not hearing a true representation of the music, there's no way you can do the work needed on that music to make it sound good to anyone else, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that you wanted to raise as well, that you want to listen to your music through different speakers, not just through your big ones, right?
Yeah. So even though I've got these expensive speakers behind me, I've got the cool audio interface like we discussed. When I'm mixing a tune, I will export it, put it in Dropbox, listen to it on my phone, listen to it on the laptop speakers, listen to it on the Alexa.
You've got an Alexa over there.
I've got an Alexa in the corner. I don't know if you can actually see that. Yeah, you can.
Your little red Alexa.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So it's important to listen to it on loads of different devices, because you've got to remember the people who are going to listen to your tune, they're not listening in studios. They're listening in cars. They're listening on their little Alexa in their house. They're listening on AirPods. And the other thing is as well, when you listen on these type of things and the Alexa, it's a mono speaker. So while you're making your mix in stereo and you're doing all these wide effects, you have to make sure that it's going to sound good on a single speaker as well.
That's a great point. So Mixmaster G says, are I missing something about a new time? No, the reason we're here at this time is that we are taking a break from filming in London with James in his studio. And we wanted to do a Tuesday Tips with James because he's got so much to share on the subject of production. And so he's been sharing his tips about ways of making your studio sound better. Now, there's lots and lots of you asking questions about this. Dan says, joking aside, this course sounds like it's going to be literally gold. First-hand knowledge from James Hype that, in my opinion, you can't really put a price on. So we're going to stop reading that comment out there. But thank you very much for your encouragement and for your enthusiasm there, Dan. Believe me, if you want to go deep into how this man produces, you're going to love what we're making with him here this week. We're talking about how to make your studio sound better and why it's important. And a few of you are sharing your problems. Now, obviously, we haven't got time to fix them all for you, but I will share a couple. So Cam says, I've got a bare wall in front of me. I have some acoustics. I just need to stick them to the wall. AVE Isowave. I've got a Motu M4. I think those Motu interfaces are meant to be quite nice.
I think Motu is a pretty good brand. You should think about the wall behind you, mate, not the wall in front of you.
Okay, cool.
And it's about where it's going to bounce, where the sound's going to bounce off.
Another one from Big Joe Joyce, who says, hi, guys. One of the walls in my room is a sliding wardrobe. It's a mirror, and so the entire wall is a mirror, and a nightmare for reflections. Any recommendations?
Open the door.
Open the door.
That's all I got.
Simple as that. So if you've got a sliding wardrobe, and you've got soft clothing, soft clothing.
You've got clothes behind it. That's like a rail of clothes is so good because it's absorbing and diffusing. So open the door. That's all I got.
This is from Brian. Is it true that you should possibly use less expensive gear if you can make it sound great on that, then it'd be amazing on pro gear? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, isn't it? You've got to know what it sounds like.
Yeah, like there's no harm in starting out with less expensive gear. Loads of people are making great music on less expensive gear. Like I made a record that was top 10 in 4 countries, recorded it on a microphone that cost £70.
Oh, there you go. In fact, we've been, I don't want to give too much away about this course, but there's elements of this course that you recorded on your iPhone. So it's more a case of what you do with what you've got. So we're saying the iPhone costs £1,200. All right, so you're not paying £1,200 for the microphone in your iPhone. Digital Nation says invest in good headphones. Good for mixing at 3 a.m. and if bad room acoustics.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't actually like mixing in headphones, do you?
Personally, I'm not good at making music in headphones. I find I get bored, and I can make music for hours and hours, but I find I get bored in headphones. And if I'm traveling, I genuinely rather use my laptop speakers.
Because I guess you also know, because you experience what that is likely to sound like on bigger speakers in a way that maybe a beginner wouldn't.
If you're stuck and you can't hear correctly, use a reference. So if I'm making a track on the road and I've only got headphones or I've only got the laptop speakers, then I'll compare it to one of my tracks that's already finished.
Okay, so you can immediately think, oh, that's a bit wrong.
Or it's not balanced correctly or whatever.
The final query then, so we're talking about audio. We're talking about with James about how to make your live streams, your productions sound good by having good audio in your room, by having good quality components, having your room set up properly, and why that's important. So this is, I think it's a good question from Oleg, who says, how could you make the same track sound good on all those different types of speakers? You don't make different files for all those speakers,
No,
correct?
you don't.
So it's a really good question, isn't it?
There is one stereo master that gets distributed. So it's about really taking care and not like there are things that you can do that would make the stereo sound amazing, but they might absolutely ruin the mono version of it. So it's just about listening on all these different speakers, and then you will learn, oh, when I do that, it sounds awful on the iPhone. When I do that, it sounds weird on the bass, you know? So it's practice, and it's just listen to your devices every single time.
Right, people, we are in the middle of filming here. We've got a whole crew here, and we can't keep them waiting any longer. We're paying them by the hour. I make some of this stuff up, you know that. But we are busy, so we're going to have to call it a day there. Thank you very much, James, for joining us.
Thank you, Phil.
We're with this man because we're filming for a new production course forthcoming here on Digital DJ Tips with James Hype, by James Hype. It's very exciting, so keep an eye out for that. But meanwhile, from us here in James's top secret studio in London, have a great day. Get good, get out there, make the moments. We'll see you again very soon.
See you later.
Bye for now.